Hi, I'm Kevin Smith from Psst and Cleaver. Today we're going to be cooking the Toro steak. Very unusual steak that you will not find in many places, mainly because from my knowledge, we're the first people who started pulling this off and using it as an actual steak. It is coming from the highest abdominal muscle, which is up here where the animal is breathing, the flank steak being the lowest. I couldn't come up with a name for it for a long time, and I was reading a Japanese cookbook about Toro. Belly, this is part of the belly, and one night the name Toro came to me to start calling it this particular name. Wonderful steak, and we're going to show you how to cook it. We got our big chunk of beef here. This is essentially the entire rib section with our short ribs. We'll get our Toros from here, we'll get our ribeyes, but primarily at the moment I'm going to take the Toro steak off. So step one is to take the outside skirt steak off. So I'm just going to come in. We've got our outside skirt steak. Now we've got this lovely skirt steak that's going to live underneath here. And this is going to help me get into our Toro steak, which is going to live underneath it. The Toro steak is the highest abdominal muscle of the animal. So we got two different skirt steaks here. By removing those, I've come to these rib tips over here. The rib tips are going to be key to getting the Toro off in a nice one piece. Up here is part of the breastbone, the slight extension of the brisket. So I need to come down and start loosening this up here, all the way down here, getting in. So at this point, the Toro is still not really visible, but what I'm looking for is this big fat line that runs along here. Where the ribs end, the Toro lives right here. So the reason I do this over the edge of the table is I don't want to stab the table too much, and I just want to get my knife parallel with these rib tips, take this whole thing off right here. I'm going to trim up the Toro real quick. As you peel this fat away, you start to reveal this insanely marbled piece of meat. This part has to come off. This is all great for sausage and burgers. Starting to reveal the Toro. There's a vein that runs down it. I like to just pull it out with my finger without getting too much into the meat. Doesn't really matter too much if the vein's left on. It's gonna crisp up and you won't even notice that you're eating it anyway. So now I want to take the meat off on the back. This is all tough meat on top of here. And again, this is why this steak is not seen in too many places, mainly because there's a lot of work to get it out. And it can also be seen as a lot of yield loss if you're taking this off. We see it as sausage, burgers, and we see that we have a massively unique steak, which is one of the best on the entire animal. This is pretty much the Toro steak, how I like to trim them up. We've got the fibers all running in one direction, and this is the highest abdominal muscle, the flank being the lowest. So there's a lot more breathing happening here with the animal, hence the more intramuscular marbling and fat going through it. I'm going to cut this in half real quick and show you what the marbling looks like on the inside, so you can see how marbled these cuts are on here. This is a phenomenal steak, something you won't find in too many places these days. We're going to be cooking our Toro steak today. I'm going to just get straight into it and show you how we do it at the restaurant and at the shop. So I have salt over here, we got some tallow, some butter, shio koji. I'll explain more about that as we cook with it. But for seasoning, I always tell people, when you think you've added enough salt, add some more. I think one of the big differences between cooking in a restaurant and cooking at home is the amount of salt restaurants will use compared to the amount of salt you would use at home. So tallow, gonna go straight into a pan here, nice and hot. I'm looking for smoke to be coming off of this pan. I don't want it to be anything other than a really, really hard sear as it hits the pan. So seeing the smoke come off of the pan is key. I want to get it all around the edges. The Toro steak has a lot of fat going through it, so we want to treat this with getting as much caramelization on it as possible. So this pan is smoking hot now, so I'm going to go in, laying the steak away from me. Don't drop it towards you. Drop it in, hear that sizzle, and we're just going to leave it there for just a sec. I don't want to turn it too soon. I want to make sure I'm getting color on it. And one of the things we're going to notice with this is adding the butter will happen closer to the end of cooking. I don't want to do that too soon, mainly because the butter's going to start to burn, which is going to give you not the flavour that we're looking for today. Just want to have a quick check under here, see what it's looking like. So already getting a little bit of colour. I'm going to flip it. I like to flip this steak as much as I see fit, probably 5 or 6 times in here. The key is not to be shaking the pan. I want to fry the steak. I don't want to steam it. I want to get crispy caramelization going on here. When the butter goes in towards the end of cooking, I'll turn the heat down, and then the butter's going to add caramelization to the steak as well. You can hear the sizzling of the fat in the rest of the fat here. That's what we want. We don't want to be not hearing this noise. We see here starting to get that lovely color already. Super hot pan. This pan is at 470 at the minute, so if you're doing this at home, you want to make sure your pan is like been on for at least 5 minutes to get it really, really hot. At the moment, it looks like the steak is done, but it's by no means done. It's practically raw in the middle here, so we want to continue to cook it, and I'm aiming to get this to like a medium rare. We don't want to be going too rare on this. We want it to be closer to medium rare. Flipping again, and now I'm going to start to baste, getting more color going over here. And don't add the butter in yet. This is when the pan is screaming hot, and if you start adding the butter now, it's going to burn and you're going to end up with black butter. At the moment, the inside of the steak is still pretty rare, but I can tell that by feeling it. It's got a slight little plumpiness going on. I'm used to it, so I'm just doing it by feel. You don't want to be able to stick your finger in it and the meat to stay. It wants to start to push up slightly. I'm not really a big fan of using thermometers, but for the home cook, I would be taking this to about 125 degrees, maybe 130, with a thermometer in the center of it. So I'm going to flip it one more time. So that's perfect. I'm going to go in with all of our butter now. And you'll notice the butter's going to start to bubble. I'm listening for the bubbles to disappear. I want them to start, when you hear all of the bubbles happening, you want the bubbles to dissipate and go away. That's telling me that the milk solids are coming out. And you'll see when we start to turn this in a minute, the change in the steak, the color in the steak. Again, flipping now. I mean, look at the color on this now. This is exactly what we're looking for. This is adding flavor. The butter, as you can see, it's starting to turn brown. This is an important stage. You can burn it and it will go too black, which is not what we want. We want a caramelization. So for me now, this steak is done. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to turn the temperature right down on here. And I'm going to leave this guy rest over here for just a sec, and we'll come back to that. While this is coming down, I'm going to take the pan off the heat, and I've got my shio koji over here. Shio koji is essentially a cheat code for getting things to taste like umami. It looks like mayonnaise. It tastes absolutely nothing like it. It's a fantastic binder as well. So looking at what I have over here now, I have a pan of butter and fat, all of the juices. I want to take so much of the koji, just put it in, taking it off the heat. One of the cool things about this is it's two Japanese techniques here, you know, like we have a Toro steak, which is essentially, the name is stolen from a classic Japanese cut. And then koji also, you know, has its roots definitely firmly set in Japanese cookery. So, you know, you could serve this with a ton of different sauces, but for us at the restaurant, we love to let it be what it is with koji. And I'm stirring the pan, getting there. Okay, so our steak rested for not too long. This is a technique that I love to do. So you don't want to be cutting it this way. What I particularly like to do with this one is cut it in half with the grain. You can see it's nice and rare in here, very rare still. Now that we're here, I want to cut it as thinly as I can. And I'm going to drop it back into the pan to get the desired cook that I want on this. And this is also going to allow the sauce to get into those open grains of the meat here. Again, cutting against the grain. It's crunchy, it's got a great color on it here. And again, this is one that we don't want to be eating too rare. Some of the steaks we're going to cook them very rare. Because of the high fat content on this, we want it to be a little bit more done. Just like I'm talking a few seconds in the pan here. There's enough heat in the pan to finish what we want. I want to get all of the flavor into the steak. Now I'm done. That's it. So just enough heat there to start plating how we do it. This is how we finish pretty much every steak we do as a Toro at the shop. So just laying it up on the plate. When the grains are open like this, it's still got the ability to absorb flavor. This is a fantastic steak. So coming back, I want to take all of this now. And you see the texture of the koji, it's got caramelized, it's sweet, there's all the brown butter in there. And don't be afraid of using all of this, you know, this is pure flavor here. You could go ahead and add herbs and whatever you want to it, but simplicity is what I like to do. Less is always more. So this is our Toro steak, cooked medium with a beautiful koji brown butter sauce, and the cooking technique for this one is pan frying, but in enough fat to make it almost shallow fry. So that's it. I'm gonna try a small piece now, or a big piece, should I say. It's amazing. Yeah. It's got the richness from the fat, it's got the sweetness from the koji, the texture on the outside. If you can find this, this is one of the best steaks on the animal. Love it. It's so good. It's so good.
Subscribe to our channel and visit ChefSteps.com for more tips, recipes, guides, and tools to help you level up in the kitchen.